Are with Robin Hughes, Chief Experience Officer at Co-Nectar Academy, and he is from New Zealand. He was born in New Zealand, but he's got the nationality of Australia too. Right now, he is serving in Cambodia, and he and me, we are co-authoring a book on abundance, and this is our the first first episode of the series of the abundance book. So today we'll be talking about abundance. What is abundance, and how we gonna write a book on this, and what this series is all about. And I'll ask Robin Hughes to give his own little bit of what do you call introduction, and then we'll go into summary of the book, and then the rest of the questions. Over to you, Robin Hughes.
Yeah. So how I describe what we're going to look at. We over time we have exposure to many foundational mindset concepts and exposure to many good ideas from around the place, and we're going to take that and bring it together, and we're going to expand on it. We're going to look a bit more deeply at some areas where maybe things haven't been so connected so well. So we can expect a lot of good stuff that on mindset that you might be able to experience other places that are very foundational, but also bringing in some newer ideas that are less well known, that are very, very useful, very, very powerful. So we're going to create a very powerful book on mindset that is able to address both issues personally, but also how can we make a difference in the world? How can we use abundance mindset to solve some of the most challenging problems there are? How can we apply it to different contexts like that? How can we apply it to our business, to our life, and to challenging, or what they call, there's a name for it. They call for the very difficult problems anyway. I'll think of the name another time. So we are looking at, in this first session, how does the mind work? And I mean, there is a lot about how the mind works, right? It's, you could look at learning, and there's like the work of people like Barbara Oakley who've looked at how do we learn, right? And we can look at the mechanics of the brain, and our understanding of the different parts of it and how it works and such. However, what we're focused on is our mindset. So we are going to focus specifically on the mindset and the relationship with abundance or abundant mindset. For me, if I'm trying to look at something like this, I want to understand what it means in context. So we can use context in many ways. We can look at many different contexts, but one of the most useful ways to look at it is in terms of the opposite, the other side of the coin. So if we're looking at abundance, we're looking at having an excess, having so much of something, right? So much. Often we think in terms of infinite. There's a complete abundance of whatever it is, right? So we're looking, in terms of mindset, we're looking at a mindset of saying, okay, a mindset where there's no real limitations, or their limitations are very limited. Okay, we are removing from a mindset of focus on limitations and scarcity, and saying there is plenty. We don't need to compete with other people. We can work together. There's plenty to work with. We don't need to stay stuck. If we want to do something, we can do it. Okay, but the other side of things is this as limitations, right? And if we want to understand abundance, we need to understand limitations too. Because if we go back right to the beginning of man, we look at a choice between abundance and scarcity, right? A choice between limitations and belief in power and abundance and recognition of all of that abundance and that. So if we have a choice between do we believe or not, right? We have a choice between do we believe or do we doubt? Do we have belief or we have or do we have fear, right? And we when we look at different comparisons, light and dark, we can see what something is by looking at something else. And so that is something that's really important. And we're going to spend some time looking as we go through. We will keep coming back to this idea of scarcity and limitations and how that relates to abundance. So we understand abundance by limitations, and limitations and scarcity and the concept of scarcity, they help us to simplify, to make things into a frame grasp and we can understand. Because if there's too much stuff, how do we quantify that? How do we form a framework? How do we understand what that means? And so, for example, with games, we simplify. We simplify principles from real life and we simplify that into a game, and that makes things easier for us. So we're always looking to simplify. We're looking we add rules and laws and that to try to make things so that we can easier for us, right? So with law, right? If we truly have abundance mindset, right? If we truly grasp abundance, then and we have good principles and ideals, then we will always do the right thing. We would always do the right thing, right? We would always follow the law without there needing to be a law, because we would have like a law inside us. We have principles. We have our identity. Our identity, who we are, says we do this, right? Out of our abundance of our heart, this is what we do. We do good, okay? There would be no need for law. But what law and limitations do is they help us to sometimes to learn. They help us to get from where we are to be able to understand and grasp abundance and to be able to work with that. So that's probably a pretty heavy concept, but I want people to start thinking about that in terms of how limitations and abundance relate to each other.
Okay, the concept since today's session was confined to the brief of whole of the book we gonna write on abundance, and that's very sweetly you have dived deep into and got us the insight of it. Okay, now the question is how our brain and the mind works.
So yes, so the mind work by default. By default, we tend to work towards scarcity, right? We tend to work by default towards scarcity, and when we are afraid and we're worried, we tend to our framework. We tend to narrow things. We tend to our mindset move away from abundance to limitations, and we tend to get stuck in that, and that is our reaction in order to protect us, right? So we have fear to protect us from going too far into danger. Okay, it's telling us, it's warning us that there's potentially a problem, and a lot of the time that problem is not really an issue for us, and what we have to deal with is our the effect of that fear that stop us from doing things that we could do. So in order to be able to work with that, we need to actually acknowledge what our fear is telling us, right? We need to accept it. We need to acknowledge that what it's telling us. So this is one concept that we can look at as we go, is how does fear serve us? And how can we use it for our advantage and part of an abundance mindset, instead of seeing it as a negative thing, right?
Okay. Please carry on.
So the other side of things is we can choose, as I say, we can choose at each point. We can choose to look at things from an abundance perspective, and scarcity can help us to. Concepts of scarcity can help us bring us to abundance. So when we face restrictions, then that can trigger us to look at, okay, within that we can be creative and we can come up with solutions and ideas, but we also need to recognize that the limitations often there are just frameworks. They're not real. They're just what we've imposed on reality to try to make things easier for us to be creative and to solve problems and to achieve things, to get things done. But these same frameworks that can help us can be harmful to us because we get restricted and we stop thinking beyond limitations. We get stuck there. So this is what I mean. This is kind of the heart, I think, in many ways, or the foundation of what we can look at, is these kind of concepts. And there's a lot to unpack, right? There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of layers. And so what at the moment, in terms of how things work, we're introducing some foundational concepts that we're going to explore over time, and we're going to explore other related concepts as well, right? There's a lot to unpack, there's a lot to explore, there's a lot that people usually look at, and there's some things that we look at that are going to be maybe different to what people have experienced elsewhere.
Okay, my question again, how do we relate to artificial intelligence and that natural intelligence? Is there any similarity?
In terms of artificial intelligence, what I look at it is that artificial intelligence hasn't been designed to be like humans, right? Our human brain, we have different compartments in a brain. We have different processes and things that happen. AI is much more restricted, right? It doesn't have all these different things happening with it, and it means that it can regurgitate. Basically, it's a regurgitation machine. It can look and see what's happened and what people have done, and it can regurgitate it and create something that's similar. It can follow pattern recognition and create something that follows a similar pattern. But it doesn't have some of the same advantages and disadvantages that we have as humans. So it can explain to us about mindset. It can be very useful. If we want to discuss about mindset with it, it can be very helpful for us because it can take from the World Wide Web, it can take the knowledge from across the web, and it can answer our questions, which is very useful. But sometimes it struggles to process things on the depth that a human does. It lacks the awareness to understand so often how to answer the question that you're actually asking, or giving you what you want to know.
Okay, as you were discussing things that once you want to understand about the brighter side of anything, then you need to look at the darker to make understanding even better. What's the scarcity mindset?
The scarcity mindset just believes that we have a limited amount of anything to work with, and And so I often talk about poor mindset and rich mindset, right? And that is because when we have scarcity, when we lack things, we tend to worry a lot about the fact that we don't have enough. And because of that, we're not able to invest and to see outside our box and see, we struggle to do the little things that we can do to improve our situation because we have too little. And so we hold on to what we have, or sometimes we waste what we have instead of thinking long term. It's thinking of, okay, if I take this tiny bit of money and I invest it and I get the money back and I invest it again, I get the money back, then gradually it will grow. Okay, I don't know much, I'm ignorant, so therefore I know that I'm not good, so I'm not going to do anything to improve because hopeless, right? I don't have any hope. I don't believe that I can succeed, and so we give up. Right? So this is a concept with scarcity. We believe that things are fixed. And like we talk about fixed mindset as well, that things are a certain way and there's only a certain amount and we cannot see beyond that. We cannot see what if there is more? What if we can progress? What if we can grow? What if we can succeed? What if all it takes is that we just need to chip away? We need to take things step by step. If we do the right things, we can get out of this. So when we talk about poor mindset and scarcity, right? People can be rich and they can have poor mindset. People can be poor and they can have nothing maybe from many people's perspective, but they can be very rich and have a lot of abundance because in their mind, their way of thinking is abundance. They're not looking and seeing the limitations. They're seeing the good, the joy, the love. They're seeing all the good. So although when we have limited resources and scarcity, that tends to make us result because of our habits and our fear. We get a habit of worrying and fear, anxiety. Then we tend to poor mindset. And if we have more, then we don't have as much reason to be afraid. And so that tends towards, okay, I've got spare, I can invest it, I can do things with it. But although the two things are connected, they're different because a poor person can have rich mindset. They can have abundance mindset. They can have growth mindset. But a rich person, they can also have poor mindset and they can have these limitations and stuff that stand in the way. So usually, people that if they're poor and you have concepts of abundance, what's going to happen? You're going to go up. You're going to level up, right? You're going to keep improving. And you're going to end up with abundance, not just in your mind, but also outwardly, right? It's going to manifest. And if you have a lot of money and you have poor mindset, you're going to make yourself miserable, right? You're going to make yourself miserable and you're going to tend to throw away what you have and you're going to tend to end up poor, right? Just a generalization, you're going to end up wasting what you have. So if a poor person with poor mindset become rich, it doesn't take them long. They have lost it all again, and they're back to where they started.
Okay. In this regard, I have got another question. How about the wars, conflicts, the robberies, the snatching, and all crime that we do to take the resources of others? We invade. And we go for unfair means, and we just try to grab others' resources somehow or the other, despite the fact that we are educated, despite the fact that we know the repercussions, despite the fact that we know everything good and bad. How do you see all this happening? The countries, the powerful countries invading poor countries, or the what you call the weaker countries, powerful nations invading poor nations. Still, it's happening on the globe. Whereas we are living in the era of Grok 3, Deep Sea, Chat GPT, and this is artificial intelligence is already there. and artificial general intelligence is also happening, and whereas artificial super intelligence is just on the way, and still we are invading, still we are into wars. How about this war industry? How about that? The all negativity. How can we convert this war industry into abundance industry?
As I say, just having stuff doesn't automatically make you have abundant mindset, right? You can have everything, and people always want more. They focus on the fears and the worries, okay? And so people act out of fear. They act out of the worries about the future. They act out of their sense of scarcity, right? And so they make decisions that are often understandable, okay, often can be understood. If you look at it, you can understand why they make the decisions that they do. But then look at it from abundance, and you say they are looking at it from scarcity, right? They're seeing limitations, and they're trying to work within the framework of limitations, and they're making decisions based on that, and often they're not very good decisions. They're very poor decisions because they make assumptions. They make assumptions, right? And we make assumptions about what we can and can't do. While that is useful to see, as I mentioned, it's useful to look at things from the limitations and stuff like that. We need to go beyond that. We need to say, hang on a minute, these limitations that we set, are they real, or have we made them up from our fear? Because fear tells us something, right? If fear tells us that there's a potential problem, something could go wrong, and then we have a choice. What are we going to do with it? We say, thank you very much, fear. Thank you very much for bringing me to attention to a potential problem. I have heard you. But now I'm going to look at the problem beyond fear. I'm going to look at it from a perspective of love and abundance, okay, and of belief. And so if we do that, then we can approach things differently. The very difficult problems, we can approach them differently. Because instead of saying, no, we can't, right? No, we can't. No, that person, we can't help them. We can't change their mindset. We can't do it. It's too hard. It's too hard to change them from a poor mindset, a mindset of hate. It's too hard to move them to a mindset of abundance and love. So we give up. And so we choose war. We choose violence. Okay, to deal with violence, we choose, and hate, we choose to do violence because our belief is too small, right? Because we don't see how. So that's what it comes down to, really, is our limitations, our belief in scarcity, and in saying it can't be done, it's impossible, it's too hard, and that's informing the decisions we make.
Okay, and how about the growth mindset? Growth mindset in exponential thinking. What is moonshot thinking?
So growth mindset is about the idea of that we can improve, right? Things can get better, right? And because we set these limiting beliefs, we set these boundaries about what's possible and what's not, and so we're not able to say, oh, if we do this and we keep chipping away, maybe it's possible, maybe we could see change, maybe we could see transformation, maybe things don't have to be the way they are, right? So we lose our curiosity for potential solutions because we say, no, it's impossible. So growth mindset is a belief that and relates to abundance mindset is that we can grow, we can improve. We're not stuck where we are now. Maybe I can't do it now. Maybe I don't know how to do it now, but we need to reframe that. I don't know how to do it yet. I can't do it yet. So I will be able to do it in the future. I can do it in the future. I will find out how to do it, and I'll work step by step, and I'll understand the problem, a huge problem, too big, it cannot be understood. Okay, we cannot do it. If we approach it all as big and major, we come to the wrong conclusion. We ask the wrong question, we come to the wrong conclusion. Okay, because we work within our limitations. We need to break down the problem and look at it, the different parts, and look at it from small and be able to build it back up to solving the problem. So this is where actually setting limitations can help us, because for growth, we need to be able to take things down to very small, right? We need to take very small actions to get very abundant result. And if we don't bring things down to small and manageable, to small steps that we can achieve, we give up.
That's amazing insight into the things of abundance. Okay, now I would like to just ask you to summarize our whole program that we're gonna do, the series of podcasts for writing a book. Can you summarize whole of the stuff that as we were defining earlier, kind of deep brief in the end of it? You've got only 3 minutes to go.
Okay, so to some degree, everything is a journey and an adventure, right? So we have some ideas of what we're going to do, but we don't know fully what the end result is going to be like, right? So what we want to look at if we are going to have abundance mindset is we need to be agile, right? We need to be able to adapt as we go. We need to be able to take things and be able to move. The problem is that people end up stuck, right? In terms of project management, we talk about waterfall, right? And we plan everything out at the beginning, but then we cannot adapt as we go to new information. We should be able to adapt and improve over time to keep iterating, right? So that's what I want to be able to do with what we're doing, is to be able to improve along and not be fixed. There is so much information on the table, right? So what are we going to cover? What we're covering is we are talking about abundance and abundant mindset. We're talking about the basics. We're talking about how it fits and connects with things like our limitations. So we look with attaching and looking at the positive and how the negative, how they connect and how they fulfill the role, and how we can switch between one to the other. So we can take things like fear and we can end up with love and belief, right? So we want to be able to switch these over, and we want to be able to look at situations and contexts so that it's relevant for our lives. And we also want to be able to have something that we can actually do, right? We want to have something that we can do so that we're actually building the habits. We want to build the habits of abundance, of abundant mindset. So in order to do that, we want to start small. And so this is where we can use questions, right? So I am starting a challenge called a challenge for how to change the world. How to change the world and make more impact, right? Make more social impact. And for that challenge, I'm asking people to ask a question at least every work day of the week. Ask one question, and then also look at answering a question every day, because we want to develop that curiosity. We want to develop that habit of being curious and of opening our minds. And we want to develop that habit of asking questions so we can connect and converse with people, right? So we can talk to people, because half of conversation is questions, right? We ask questions and we answer it. And then we get asked questions back, and that's our conversation. So we want to improve our conversations and we want to improve our mindset. So we need to start somewhere, and we need to start small, and we can do that by asking questions. In addition to that, we help each other. because when we answer the questions and ask them, we can connect with each other, and we can help people, we can help students. So when they ask question and we answer it, or we ask question and they answer it, we are forming conversation and we're practicing conversing with each other and sharing ideas. So this is something that I really encourage people to get involved with and to practice this. And there's many other levels we can do of behaviors like that. At Riahan School, right, they do interviews like this. And that is powerful, right? To do interviews, to have conversation that help us connect with other people, that open our horizons, open our thinking differently. We're participating in building abundance in our mindset and our thinking, right?
Thank you so much, Robin Hughes. This was great insight for our the book Abundance that we can that we're going to be co-authoring, and this immensely pleasant start for this beautiful beginning for the book, and we'll call it a day. Thank you so much, and see you tomorrow at same time, same person talking to you on abundance. Bye bye.